Hello and welcome to this week's Granny's Garden. Now this week I'm going to be showing you how to prune your Viburnum Tinus. What can I say about Viburnum Tinus? Let's see if I've got enough fingers. They are evergreen, they're bushy and they're vigorous. They are long blooming, they attract pollinators. You can plant them in partial shade or in full sun. They are deer resistant, they will tolerate exposed areas, high winds and even coastal salt. And I've run out of fingers. And even temperatures up to -10 degrees Celsius. Jeepers, it's almost impossible to kill the thing. Best used either as a loose hedge or in a mixed border. As a hedge they're great, they're very, very dense and they grow fast and they grow tall. About 6 to 8 foot tall and 6 foot wide, according to the books. But I just have to let you into a little secret. This baby is a Mediterranean plant and this is Spain, and under the right conditions it's not 6 to 8 foot tall, it grows a whopping 22 feet tall. The good news is it can be contained height-wise. Now if you're looking for a very fast growing privacy screen, this is definitely the one for you if you have room for a loose hedge. This is not a privet hedge and it's not up to be cut or clipped tight. If you have room along a wall or along a fence for a nice loose hedge, this is definitely the one for you. It has dense leaf all year round, it's evergreen, right from the top, right down to the very base. It's luscious, green and bushy all year round. And not only that, but from autumn onwards you get a succession of tiny, tight little pink buds. They look like pink pearls, they're absolutely gorgeous. And then in late winter or early spring, these are going to open out and instead of pink, you're going to get a white, flat cluster of flowers that last and last and last. And eventually, what's happening right here, these will form little seed pods and these seed pods will turn a bright metallic blue. So this gives everything to you and definitely gives colour to your winter garden. Now I have 3 Viburnum Tinus here in my garden, and on these 3 shrubs I'm going to show you the 3 different types of pruning for them. You need to remember that Viburnum Tinus blooms on old wood, so you need to do your pruning just after the flowers have faded, and your pruning window is 4 weeks. If you prune later than that, like into the summer, or worse still in autumn, you're going to forfeit all your buds, your flowers and your berries for next year, or almost all of them. So we need to do it right now. Pruning type 1 is to maintain the shape. Now the shape of viburnum is mainly rounded, so anything that comes out of the norm, anything that sticks out the side away from this mounded dense shape should be taken away. So I'm just going to get my secateurs and my safety goggles on and we're just going to give this a few tweaks here and there. Now, don't worry that I'm cutting off new growth. This has only just started and this is a very, very fast grower. So once I've got my shape, then let it all grow at the same time with new growth. First of all, crop it, then let it grow together. You will also see that I am cutting off the berries. Now, this is a personal choice. If you love the blue metallic berries, and they really, really are gorgeous, this dark metallic blue is absolutely gorgeous. But, as I said, this is a Mediterranean shrub. I live in a Mediterranean country. And every single one of these tiny little berries, the very second it touches the ground, forms another plant. So for me, I have to cut it off. The other thing I want to show you is when you're pruning your viburnum, don't leave stubs like this. You need to cut deep into the bush or deep enough to cover the cut. If I cut down here, now you can't see the cut and immediately it's going to be covered by new growth. But what is going to stick out like a sore thumb are these ugly headless branches. So you need to cut deep into the shrub so you lose that headless branch. That's better. Now I'm just going to cut some at the back, and basically for this plant that will be that. For this year that is sufficient on this shrub. As you may have noticed, this shrub is towards the front of a border, and as I said in the beginning of the video, this is not apt for a front of border, it should be at the back. However, this is a volunteer shrub, so if I want to maintain it at the front of the border, and for the moment I do, what I'm going to do is play with height reduction on future years. Next year, what I'll probably do is come in at this level, take all this upper part off, and work with a nice mounded shrub on the bottom. And then by next year, the following year I should say, it'll be up again at this height. So I'm going to be working every year virtually between this height and this height. But no problem whatsoever. This shrub can take anything you throw at it. If you reduce it in height, it'll just bounce back. So now it's time to have a look at pruning type number 2, which is precisely height reduction. So we need to go to the back part of the garden. This is Viburnum Tinus number 2. And again, it's a volunteer plant. I presume it's a volunteer plant. It's definitely not apt to be planted inside a raised bed, and especially a raised bed this wide. This definitely needs a height reduction. These branches can get quite thick, and I've got the roof over my awning here. These can get 6 foot wide or even wider, so it's going to end up spreading out here and then pushing up against the roof, and you can actually pop the roof off. So I want to take it down to at least there, and then let's just let it bush out. So what I'm going to do is, without looking very closely, I'm just going to chop it off, and then we'll start hiding the branches, having a look to make sure that inside it isn't brown, letting more light in, decongesting, all that good stuff. So the first thing I need to do is just chop it off more or less at the height I need, and then I'll start shaping it and decongesting it. Now, what I want to do now is just remove a lot of this very green, very new foliage to see what on earth is going on inside there. So, it's very easy to cut. You just literally group it together like in a ponytail with your hand and just cut it off. I just want to cut it back to see what's going on. Let's get in close. Now, this is a good example of both suckering and layering. Here is a branch that's attached to the parent plant right here, and if you follow it down, follow it down, follow it down, follow it down, you will see that it has made contact with the earth, formed very, very strong roots. It is now sending up new plants from these new roots. And this is what's happening here. I've got a little forest of new plants that all it does is make the parent plant grow wider and wider. And then, of course, the branches get thicker and thicker until huge plants are formed, and we just don't want that. So I'm going to be cutting this right down at the base, and then I'm going to be digging it up at a later date, not today. So I'm going to get out my little mini chainsaw, and I'm going to be cutting this, and also I want to cut down some of these branches. Have you seen how thick they are? So I need to cut them down roughly to just above the branches, but don't you worry, it looks absolutely awful at the moment, but it won't. It'll look fine. And at least I'll be back to a single parent plant and not a little forest. Now this branch is a really, really old branch, and it's really congesting the centre. So in actual fact, I'm going to take this branch down to the base of where it unites with these two, which are younger branches. You don't want that one falling on the camera because it's quite thick. Now, if you have a look at this branch, as you see, the very second it touches the ground, it starts to root in. Now, every year you'd have a look for these type of things. You'd remove suckers, and you'd remove, it's very easy to remove at this stage. All you have to do is give a little tug and out it comes. What's not easy to do is when it becomes as thick as your arm, and then you've got a problem, then you have to dig it up, which is what I'm going to have to do. But that's what happens when you take on an electric garden. You have to work for your living. Now, you might think that this looks a bit sad, and indeed it does look a tad sad, poor little thing, but it will bounce back. And to prove I haven't killed it, I'm going to be showing it throughout the growing season so you can see it bouncing back to be lovely and lush. Now, the piece de resistance we've left for last, because we're going to return down to the beginning of the garden, the shrub that I showed you in the beginning, the tallest one I have, and I'm going to be doing a rejuvenation pruning. And if it's capable of surviving that, it's capable of surviving anything. So, let's get down the end of the garden and I'll show you that it's really impossible to kill this thing. Now, in actual fact, it's the following day. Soon after I'd finished the height reduction on the previous viburnum, a storm blew in, a big thunderstorm blew in and started chucking rain, there was thunder and lightning, and the area you can see here behind me on the step became a virtual waterfall. I'm going to put it up on the screen so you can see it, but it was quite something to see. But certainly it wasn't a day to be out pruning the viburnums, so I went inside to do other things. It's still raining on and off today, but I think I've got a window of maybe about an hour, so let's see if we can get this third pruning session done. Well, this is where we started at the beginning of the video, and this is the one I'm going to do, the drastic pruning. It's going to be complete rejuvenation pruning. The reason being, it's completely taken over the area. If I get behind the camera now, you'll see what I mean. A shrub of this height, especially in this country, is too far forward. I'm always having to hack at this side because it just crosses in on top of the rose. It eats the rose, and indeed it eats the mahonia as well. And it's going to have a little hop around the back so you can have a better look at it. Now, in preparation for this video, I have removed some of the back branches so you can actually see what's going on. This is so typical of this shrub if it's left unchecked. Wherever it touches the ground, either the seed touches the ground or it layers against the ground, a horizontal branch touches the ground, a new plant shoots up. So in actual fact now, the situation with this shrub is I've got one plant here with loads of different plants and suckers. I've got another plant here, and if I pull away the branches, you can see there's yet another one here. So it's getting wider and wider all the time. So I definitely need to bring this right down and then see what I do from there. But either way, the first thing I need to do is with the loppers just take off this layer so I don't have this huge canopy to come crashing down on my head. And once that's done, then I can take it down to 50 centimetres, which is about 18 inches, 20 inches above ground level. So let's do this in two phases. Now, before I start any type of rejuvenation pruning, I have to take stock of the situation. For me, it makes no sense at all to be rejuvenating the entire 3 shrubs because 3 shrubs is far too much, especially in this area. So I'm going to keep this one, which is near the tree and further away from both the rose and the mahonia, freeing up a lot more space here. And this one, when it grows, will be able to fill out this space without encroaching on the others. So what I'm going to be doing is these 2 that I don't want, I'm going to be taking them down to ground level to be dug up, and this one will do the rejuvenation pruning. But first of all, I'm going to take this down to ground level and get it out of the way. Now, if ever there was an example of what is a DDD, like this dead disease damage, or indeed the crossing branches, this is it. I've got one that's crossing 1, 2, 3, 4 branches, and another one here that is crossing in front of this one and behind this one, and then it crosses behind that one. So definitely it's got to be dealt with. However, I'm not going to deal with it until I actually reduce it to the height I want, which is about 18 inches, but somewhere between 18 to 20 inches, about 50 centimetres. So somewhere around about just above this bud here, I'm going to reduce it entirely, and then we'll see where we're at. But actually, I might take this one's crossing because it's going to hinder me being able to cut the rest. And as a matter of fact, I might be able to get the rest with loppers. We'll get rid of the crossing one right down at the base of where it joins the other stem. That's perfect. This one that's crossing a whole load, I'm actually going to take right out of the base because that type of bad behaviour I don't like at all. So we'll get rid of the bullies. So next thing we need to do is take it down to 50 centimetres. So it's like above this bud here and above this one here. This one I'm going to take out. I'm not going to reduce it to 50 centimetres because it is heading towards the centre and you don't want to congest ever the centre. So in actual fact, I'm going to take it right down to here. This one at the moment, although it's a nice young branch, it's just getting in the way. I can't see, so I'm going to take it out as well. So I might be able to pull it now. Right. Now this one I said we're going to take down again to about 50 centimetres. Way. Again, this one I don't want any of these over vigorous plants at the moment, these over vigorous stems I should say, especially growing up in the centre of the plant, and the angle is very, very bad. That's better. Now, these are all suckers I'm getting rid of now. We do not want suckers. Now I'm also going to get rid of this one because it's opening really far out and it's already growing at a very bad angle that I don't like at all. So I'm going to cut this down now with the loppers at ground level and then we'll assess where we are. Basically what I've been left with is what looks like 4 sticks in the ground. It is a bit drastic, it is a rejuvenation pruning, but it will spring back. The important thing about a drastic pruning like this, you have to do it after the last frost. A shrub or a tree, or indeed anything, this particular one, it cannot deal with recovering from this type of drastic pruning, and on top of it having to deal with the cold. So the last frost has passed, thankfully. Certainly the last rain hasn't passed, but the last frost has passed. So now the most important thing for me to do right now is I'm going to get some granular feed. I'm going to feed it. I'm going to put some nice organic compost around it, and then I'm going to water it. Even though it's going to pour rain, I still prefer to get a nice deep water now, so it doesn't go into too much shock. Poor baby. Don't worry, Granny will take care of you. This is a nice, rich organic compost. You wouldn't normally use anything this rich on this shrub, but it has gone through quite a bit and it needs a little helping hand. Only just finished in time. It is starting to rain. It looks like there's going to be a thunderstorm, so I'm going to very, very quickly gather all my little things together, especially the electrical part, like my little mini chainsaw, and head very, very quickly into the house. I hope you've enjoyed this video and now can take on your Viburnum Tinus. All three types of pruning. Remember, Type 1 was just maintenance, give it a nice shape. Type 2 was height reduction. Type 3 is drastic rejuvenation pruning. With this particular shrub, you can do either 1, 2 or 3 of the different types of pruning throughout the lifetime of this shrub. Of course, there's the other possibility, which is just leave it to its own devices. If you have the room, you can just let it go. Always DDDs. You always want to look out for crossing, dead, damaged disease. Those are always on the pruning list. But you can leave it to its own devices, which would be the fourth option. For the moment from me, it's bye-bye now, and I'll leave you with what's good in the garden, in all the rain, today. See you next Friday. And what's looking good in the garden this week has got to be the Alberta spruce. It's got this lovely little spring growth on. It's in the little urns. I've got 2 of them. I see the other one down there. And it's nice and fluffy and light. And I'm getting soaked, so I think it's time for me to head in. But I thought I'd just give you a quick little look. Isn't that sweet? See the wind picking up as well. So soft.